Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk about my transition from console to PC, which I did about 6 months ago. I'll talk a little bit about why I made the switch, building my PC, and then some tips that help me improve for those of you who are looking to make the switch yourselves. If you want to skip ahead to any specific part, I'll leave the timestamps up on the screen now so you can just choose whichever part you're interested in. But I think the whole video will be helpful and interesting even if you're not on console or looking to switch. So for those of you who don't know, and there's probably a decent amount of you since we just exploded in subs, but when I began playing Fortnite in December of 2017, which is around 13 months ago, I played on console. I'll have some gameplay from back when I was on console before I ended up switching to PC, but back when I was on console, I would say I was pretty decent. I played on PlayStation and initially started on console because that's where all my friends from high school played on. I played on PS4 for around 6 months before I started to think about moving to mouse and keyboard and PC. I was pretty decent on console. I think I had a little over 500 wins and something like a 4 or 5 KD, but I felt limited on how good I could actually get. I've always been extremely competitive and I wanted to get better, but I also wanted to make new content. I knew that I really couldn't do that and I was pretty limited on PS4. Plus, if you're an OG viewer, you've probably seen my video about competitive console scene from July, which is when I was making the transition. But in the video, I just talk about how toxic the competitive console scene was at the time, and how Epic will mainly focus on PC for the competitive scene. So that was kind of one of the main points why I switched over, but the breaking point for me was when my controller kept malfunctioning. One of the thumbsticks kept moving to the right on its own. It was so annoying. So instead of buying another controller, I just decided to buy a mouse and keyboard. So that is probably my first piece of advice for anyone trying to make the switch. Just do what I did and buy a mouse and keyboard and then play with them on console for 2 or 3 weeks while you pick your PC parts and then get them shipped. So the first mouse that I bought was the G403. I got a G610 keyboard from Logitech as well, and then a SteelSeries QCK Plus mousepad. So before Fortnite, I had never played a WASD PC game in my life. So I did play League of Legends, but in that game you move around by clicking on the screen, so there's no moving keys. So when I first started with mouse and keyboard on Fortnite, I was literally a complete bot. So the gameplay you're watching now is a couple of weeks on mouse and keyboard while still on console, so you can tell I was pretty bad, but still slowly learning. But when I first started, I'm not over-exaggerating by any means when I say that I was absolutely terrible. I couldn't move the right way, I couldn't aim while moving, or aim at all really, and it was just extremely frustrating. Imagine if you went from being a 4 to 5 KD player on console who could just easily drop 10 kill wins to just a complete bot. I died probably 30 to 40 times on PC before I ended up ever getting my first kill, so not even my first win, my first kill. But I knew that I wanted to stick with mouse and keyboard and that I had to push through if I ever wanted to completely move over to PC. So I just kept playing and each day I would slightly improve. Slowly over time I just stopped messing up my building binds and I slowly went from a complete bot to more of a slight bot where I had decent game knowledge but still my mechanics were severely lacking. So this took probably 2 to 3 weeks, and that's when I finally ordered and built my PC. This was in late July and early August while I was working a full-time internship. So I was getting paid pretty well, and I had more than enough money to buy a decent PC. My brother knows a lot more about PCs and hardware than I do, so he helped me out after I gave him my price point, which was around 1,500 bucks. So since I'm in college, I needed a PC that was pretty small and easy to transport and get around, which is why I originally played on console and never had a PC before that. So you guys can look at the description of this video to find my full PC build, but I got a pretty beefy build with an i700K and a 1070 Ti. My brother and one of his friends built it, which saved me a lot of money compared to if I had gotten it pre-built, which was pretty nice. So if you guys are interested or wondering what kind of PC you should buy, I recommend just checking out r/buildapc on Reddit because they will literally tell you what parts you should buy or where to buy a good pre-built if you just tell them how much you're willing to spend. You guys also probably know that in my how to improve your FPS video, I tried to give some hardware tips but got absolutely roasted by all the tech junkies who know just way more about hardware than I do. So my best advice is just to go to actual experts over on Reddit and ask them there. By this time I was getting pretty comfortable on my mouse and keyboard and finally had my PC set up. So now I guess I'll just get into how I found and my current settings and keybinds. So the first thing I did, which I suggest for everyone switching from console to PC, is to change to stretched res. So I have a few videos on stretch res which you guys can check out, including how to change your res. but trust me when I say this that stretch res will instantly make you a better player. Your game will run smoother, your FOV will be higher, and I guarantee you won't go back to native after trying it out. The first res I played on was 1600 by 1080, which looks pretty similar to native, but you still get the nice FOV advantage. And funnily enough, after switching to 1280 by 1024 and then 1444 by 1080, I'm back on 1600 by 1080 all this 6 months later. So next to my settings, I have all the graphics settings on low, as that will definitely significantly boost your FPS and your game will look nicer than on console. I know on console you have shadows and motion blur and other stuff turned on by default or on high, so having just the option to change your settings on PC is amazing after just coming from console. The hardest thing after switching to PC was definitely finding my sensitivity. When I started on keyboard and mouse on console, there's a little bit of input delay, and being stuck on 60 FPS made me play on a higher sense. So I started on 800 DPI and 0.1 cents, and then when my PC finally came, I went to 800 DPI and 0.07 cents, and right now I'm currently on 400 DPI and 0.11 cents. So when finding your sense, a pretty good rule of thumb is that you should be able to do a 360 by swiping from one side of your mouse pad to the other. So I'm an arm gamer, which means that I use my arm most of the time for moving around and using my mouse. So I feel pretty comfortable on a low sense, but there's many pros like Mr. Savage M who are high sense players. So there's really no perfect sense, whether it be high or low. Everyone has their own preference and you can be good no matter what. And another good way to determine your sensitivity is what's called your eDPI. So this is your DPI times your Fortnite sense. So it's important because eDPI tells you that 400 DPI and 0.20 cents is the same as 800 DPI and 0.10 cents in game. The only thing that's faster is your DPI, which affects when you switch weapons and when you're using your PC not to play Fortnite. If you're shaking your screen a lot, you're probably playing on too high of a sense, and if you can't do a 180 or quickly turn to build, you're probably on too low of a sense. So just find a good sense where your building feels smooth, and you can try and adjust your ADS sensitivity after that to configure your aiming. I started with 0.40 ADS sense and 0.45 scope sense, and I'm still using something similar to that. Try and start on 0.5 ADS sense and just see if that feels too fast or slow when trying to shoot an AR, and then you can adjust it by 0.01 up or down until it feels pretty good for you. The last thing you'll want to find are your keybinds. My tip for finding that is just see what your fingers can naturally reach and what feels comfortable for you. My weapon binds are on numbers 1 through 5 and V, and my build binds are Q for walls, F for floors, and mouse button for stairs, with C to edit and shift to crouch. Something that I suggest for all players is just to have one build bind per finger. So you should have one build on your ring finger, one for your index finger, and one for your thumb. Obviously you don't have to do this, but it just makes sense when you're thinking about optimally building. But then again, Mongrel, who's arguably the best builder in the game, has all of his binds on his mouse. So in the end, just use whatever suits you best. And remember that you can always change or adjust your settings after you first choose them, so don't feel locked into a certain sensitivity or keybinds. I originally started editing with Z, and now I'm on C, which feels a lot better for me. And Tfue changed his keybinds over the summer after he was on his keybinds for I think over more than half a year. So after you get your settings down and feel comfortable with your keybinds, you can start your practice regimen to improve. The three main aspects of Fortnite mechanics that you'll want to improve after switching are building, editing, and aiming. The easiest way to work on all of them is pretty simple, just play the game and play it a lot. You'll learn mechanics, game sense, and everything else from just playing. And what I suggest for everyone switching is to drop tilted every single game once you first switch. So you're probably thinking to yourself, why would I ever do that? I'm just going to get dumped on. But tilted is easily the most populated part of the map and where you'll have the most fights. And when you first switch over, you shouldn't really be going for wins, because you'll quickly realize even if you do and you make it to late game, you'll just get killed by a decent player. So if you want to improve your mechanics, you gotta drop tilted and try and fight and push everyone you see. If you want to improve your game sense though, then you should be playing to win. So something everyone tries to do when they switch over is immediately go for wins, and they drop in just contested areas and try to hide until late game. But I'm telling you right now, if you really want to improve and become the best player you can as quickly as possible, just drop tilted and keep getting dumpstered game after game. It sounds backwards, but every single game you'll get better and you'll start winning more fights, and soon enough you'll be winning tilted. It might take a few hundred games, but in the same amount of time, if you were just playing for the win and dropping junk or whaling, you'll come out a much better mechanical and overall player than if you were hiding and dropping in those places. And this is just because most engagements and fights in Fortnite are close quarter combat fights due to how building allows players to just move around so quickly and get in your face. So becoming a master of close quarter combat is something that's extremely hard, especially when you first switch, but that's something that you need to do if you ever expect to get wins consistently. So now I'll go into how you can improve each core aspect of the game, starting with building. So building is probably the easiest just to improve on because you have playgrounds and creative now. So once you get comfortable binds, it just becomes a matter of practice and waiting for muscle memory to kick in. First, you can go into creative and just fool around with random builds and get your fingers used to pressing your build binds in certain orders. And then after that, once you're a little more comfortable and you can start building decently, you should probably just try and 1v1 your friends in creative or playgrounds. At first, you'll definitely be misclicking keys, and that's completely normal. So I would only suggest switching keybinds if you literally can't reach one of your build binds or you literally can't do a certain build after a few months. So otherwise, it's just all, like I said, practice and time, as you just have to wait and build muscle memory for hitting your keybinds. Improving your editing will also be pretty similar to improving your building. You'll just want to practice on as many edit courses as you can get your hands on. So some of the best are Candux, Mongrels, and Slappy's edit courses. You can just look them up on YouTube and there'll be codes online. You'll want to practice getting comfortable with editing different edits and quickly editing and re-editing. The hardest part for me at first was just moving my character around and making edit plays. So that will also come with practice and time. You just have to develop the muscle memory for hitting your edit key and then moving around and making edit plays after that. So lastly is probably the hardest thing to improve for everyone, and that's your aim. So when I first switched over, I didn't have creative mode, so you guys are actually really lucky because of all the practice aim and aim training courses that are out now. When I initially tried to improve my aim, I would just play tons of 50 vs 50s or whichever LTM was out for the week. And it was pretty helpful in improving my AR and my long range aim as well as my close quarter aim if I got sick of just getting destroyed dropping tilted. So you guys can play Team Rumble because 50-50 is no longer a thing, but what I recommend even more is playing aim training courses, doing Turtle Wars, and using third-party aim trainers like Kovacs. If you check my channel, I have videos on all three of these things. I also have many aim training courses for ARs and shotguns, but you could even just search them up on YouTube and I'm sure you'll find a bunch of great courses as well. The benefit to these courses is that it uses Fortnite mechanics and guns to help you improve your aim, but the only downfall is that most of these courses have stationary targets and you'll rarely ever run into someone who's not moving at all in game. So that's kind of where Turtle Wars and death matches come in. So Turtle Wars will help you with your close quarter aim and building, and death matches are more for just pure aim because there's usually no building at all. These are definitely the best creative game modes you can play to improve your aim and accuracy, and even if you don't have friends to play with, there are a ton of Discord servers like FNPL or the Turtle War server that my cousin runs that have creative games running pretty much 24/7 on every different server. And of course you can train your aim and get your sensitivity outside of Fortnite using a third-party aim trainer. So my recommendation has and always will be Kovacs. It's $10 in the Steam shop, and I'm actually giving away 5 copies on my Twitter if you're interested in getting a free copy. But with Kovacs, you can import your exact Fortnite sense and work on things like tracking, flicks, and whatever else you need practice with. So overall, those are going to be pretty much all my tips and tricks for how to improve in pretty much each aspect of the game as quickly and efficiently as possible. When you first switch over, you will be bad. Like, there's no getting around it. Nobody's mechanics will ever transfer over from console to PC directly. And that's just because of how long it takes for your muscle memory to develop and just how different it is from playing on a controller to keyboard and mouse. So just don't give up and don't be disheartened when you're not as good as you were on console for the first few weeks or months. My last piece of advice to just wrap the video up is to not look or care about your stats. You have to realize that stats are completely meaningless other than to just brag to random kids who don't play Fortnite. I have double the KD of many pros, including Liquid Chap, but does that mean I'm better than Chap? Hell no. If you're only playing to improve your stats, you'll never take chances and you'll never learn by making mistakes, so you have to have the mindset that dying is okay as long as you learn from it. I'm by no means a pro, but I think I had a pretty successful transition after going from playing on console for more than half a year to now being on PC. So after switching, I definitely think that it was worth it overall as my game runs smoother and feels great. I think I'm an overall much better player than I ever was on console, and lastly, probably the most important thing is I was able to start this channel and hopefully help some of you guys out with my videos. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. This video shoutouts go to Sanic and Nathan Hazel, who use my code JerianGrant in the item shop. And finally, don't forget to check out my big Kovacs giveaway, which I mentioned before, which will be ending a week from tomorrow on my Twitter. So that's going to be it for me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.